Hi, I'm Eileen Roche, founder of Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I am thrilled to have you join me today for this episode of Between Friends. I love Betty Turner's comment, who said that she always learns something new or how to improve what you're already doing. You know, I agree, and I learned from all of you too, Betty. So, don't ever hesitate to write in the comments, experiences that you're having or tips that you'd like to share. We all learn from each other. And last week you were in great hands with Deborah Jones and Ashley Jones. Same name, not related. But boy, did they do a fabulous job on the Kingstar Metallic Holiday thread. I was delighted to watch. I didn't watch it live. I was able to watch it later. And I was touched by Ashley Jones's poem. Oh my, that's a first in my life, I must say, to have someone write a poem as a birthday kind of celebration. That was really very lovely. So a big thank you again to Ashley. And thank you to all of you who wished me a happy birthday in the comments. That was quite kind. I had a fun birthday. My husband and I kind of took a spontaneous trip over to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Now, I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, and we drove to Santa Fe, which is over 9 hours. And about midway, when you get just west of Amarillo, Texas, you stumble upon kind of a national landmark, Cadillac Ranch. And it's a very interesting thing. Let's go ahead and bring that full screen so you can see. So Cadillac Ranch is a series of Cadillacs that have been buried headfirst into the dirt on a ranch, and it's just off of Route 40, which parallels with Route 66. But it was an ode to that tail fin, that really fun, shape of the tail fin on the Cadillac. And it was very interesting to me to learn that the whole idea of visiting Cadillac Ranch is to leave your mark on a Cadillac. So they literally sell spray can, like all American tourist locations have some kind of souvenir shop, right? And it's free to go to Cadillac Ranch. So you just walk out onto the prairie there, and you'll come across a souvenir stand that's a motor home, and you can purchase spray paint. And it smells like spray paint. As you walk across this ranch, that's what it smells like. These Cadillacs are layered with layer upon layer upon layer of spray paint. And if you do leave your mark, it will not last very long because someone will cover it up within probably about 20 minutes. So, they're kind of losing their shape, right? They're becoming really rounded and kind of bulbous. And so it's pretty wild. But if you're ever traveling that way, stop by. It's only it's just right off the highway, and, it takes you about 15 minutes to do that. That was pretty fun. And then, of course, we journeyed on to Santa Fe, and we had a lovely few days there. Very interesting museums, great Mexican food, different than our Tex-Mex food that we enjoy here in Texas. So, it was fun. We had a really great time. And the drive, again, was lovely. When do you get to just spend 9 hours with your husband and just chatting and talking and dreaming out loud and that kind of thing? So it was very nice. But today is all about hand-sketched florals and how to mimic that look with embroidery. So, of course, I am introducing a new collection, and let me bring that up. Maybe, Sam, you could do that for me. Reen's collection. Now, you all know Reen Wilcoxon. She's the founder, owner of Embroidery Garden, and this is her second design collection with Dime. Now, Reen shared with us that flowers and plants have always been a part of her life, and as a teen, she had houseplants in her bedroom. And as she grew older, her love of houseplants and gardening really blossomed. And she began to learn about the different varieties of flowers and plants, and also how to garden and create a beautiful floral landscape to enhance the eye. So it seemed only natural that she would create embroidery that features floral designs, and they are excellent to use to decorate garments, home decor items, and more. And we have several samples to share with you today that you're going to see. One of my favorite features about this collection is that it looks hand sketched. So there are no heavy satin stitches, no heavy fills. And, the designs are very fluid, very lightweight, although they also include appliqué, but it is raw edge appliqué. So there's some different things you'll learn about selecting fabrics and just getting that hand sketched look. So what's really the key to success for that? Well, there's 4 different keys, I think. There's the fabric selection, and you do have a wide variety. You can go all the way from a very lightweight cotton to a heavier linen to vinyl, and to even a flocked material. So, and velvet. I know, quite fun. And then, of course, your thread. Now, it's that black thread that gives the look of ink, that hand sketched look, right? One of your questions that you'll ask yourself is, how do I want my applique to finish? Do I want it to be a clean edge, or do I want it to fray? And, all of those considerations will help you determine how to prepare the fabric. So for the fabric prep, why don't we take a look at samples first so you get a better understanding. We'll go over the overhead cam. And here is like a table runner that she created this, and she used cotton fabric for the leaves, the 2 layers of the flower, the center, and also those petals. And notice that the outlines, that black outline, does not really match up with the applique. And that's intended to look that way. It's just like if you were sketching. It doesn't always fill in as it would if you were, let's say, doing an oil paint, right? That would be a little different. Here we have leaves, petals that are made of the cotton fabric, and yet then we have just some transparent etchings that sit over top like another layer, very wispy looking. And of course, flower centers are another layer. The real key is that beautiful black stitching, the fine run stitches that mimic the hand-sketched look are just beautiful. And they're tiny little stitches, so you're going to stitch them in that black thread. And that's what's really going to give it its accent. So that's one use. Another use that Reen created this sample. I love this. This is beautiful. And this is a really good example of how that black outline does not match up with the raw edge. And that is absolutely intended. Now, the raw edge is tacked down by a previous color. And Reen selected a thread that matches that hot pink exactly. So you really can't see it. What you do see is the black that sometimes runs right along the edge and other times separates, leaves a little space in between. And, a lot of translucent stitching is going on here, right? We're seeing right through these leaves to the little buds behind and so forth. Really, really pretty. Now, what do we have over here? We have, again, another cotton example. This time, this is 1 layer of applique, even though it appears to be 2. And because it's, the black thread, that just outlines some new color for you, making it appear to be 2 layers. I like the green fabric that she selected for the petal. You really see some kind of highlights here, a really bright spot in the leaf, and that's not thread, that's just the fabric that Reen chose. Okay, great for pillows. Like, look at this lovely pillow this a little bit bigger. This is probably about 18 inches wide, maybe 10 inches in height. and she adorned each corner with the same embroidery design and then just mirrored it each way and created this focal point in the center. And of course, all these embroidery designs come in her new collection. But then Reen moved over to a different material. Now, this is a flocked material. Now, you can't feel that, but it has a nap to it. And I believe this is one of the heat transfer vinyls that are available from a company like Caesar. And you can cut it out on your digital cutter. You can also trim it in the hoop if you'd like. And we're going to do a little bit of that today. But it's nice. I like that. It adds a little depth, a little height to the embroidery. And it really looks quite lovely. But then Reen, she's all about the in the hoop projects, right? So of course she has a crossbody bag that she has embellished with vinyl applique. So all of these flowers and the leaves underneath are vinyl. And, she stitched that right on top of this cork fabric. And it looks beautiful. So on cork fabric, I think that these hand-sketched designs are quite friendly to this substrate, to the cork, because they're not heavy, dense stitches. We don't want to perforate our cork or our vinyl. And so these tiny little stitches in just run stitches really, hold the applique in place and yet does not destruct the cork fabric underneath. So really nice job. Okay, and sometimes you just want to apply cotton fabric, but use it in a different way. Here we have a greeting card that has been embellished with one of her designs. So the black stitching was applied first, and then of course there will be a placement guide for each of the flowers and a tack down on each one, which is then stitched in thread that matches the fabric underneath. The final black etching is the last run stitch that travels and outlines all those details. Looks just great. Ashley Jones made this sample, and she also hot glued a little ribbon bow to the bottom of the bouquet. I love that. And you could most certainly steal that idea for any of these blooms in Reen Wilcoxon's hand-sketched florals. They are adorable. Okay, so let's see. And then this one's a little hard to show you, but let's take a look. So this is a sample that was made by Ashley Jones. It's a striped t-shirt. And she used velvet. This is velvet fabric, and you can kind of see how that sheen? You know how velvet has that nap, and sometimes it gets bright light, and sometimes it doesn't. Like right now, oh, that's really nice and bright. Isn't that beautiful? And, it's tricky to select thread when you are stitching on velvet, because sometimes if you, whatever thread you choose, it could dissolve almost visually into the nap because of the color choice. So in this instance, what you're seeing on screen right now, you see a lot of contrast between the applique flower and all those details in the center of the flower. But actually from the angle that I'm looking at, I can barely see that detail because the black is blending in with the dark teal velvet. And what you see, I think, is a much lighter blue. So, you have to be careful when you are selecting your threads and experiment, right? Maybe just sew a couple black running stitches on a swatch of the velvet, and then, play with it under the light and see what you like, if that's the right color or if you should experiment more. So let's see if there's any questions before we kind of move over, and we're going to go to the machine and all of that. And Tammy Madden, great samples. Love all of them. Aren't they beautiful? I know. I didn't make any of those samples. I do have a couple that I stitched, and they're coming up. But, beautiful samples from Reen Wilcoxon and Ashley Jones. They really did a lovely job. Just lovely. It's all about the samples, right? I mean, you have to see embroidery to know if you're really going to want to purchase it or wear it, that kind of thing. It's the samples that we think really, really make it shine. Absolutely. And let's see, would Ashley have ever used a topper for the velvet? That's a really good question, Joyce. But, you know, I don't believe you would in this instance because you don't want to crush the nap. I mean, the whole idea of this is to let that nap kind of rise up and push through the embroidery. The hand sketching is just, you know, outlines, and no matter what topper you put on there, it would destroy that whole effect. So anyway, that's a good question though. Thank you, Joyce. Hello, Dory. Nice to hear from you. You have rain in Naples. We sure could use rain in Dallas, I'll tell you that. My goodness. And Sandra, you must be my neighbor. Here you are in Dallas, Texas. That's great. So let's see. Why don't you tell me in the comments, do you like raw edge applique? Is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down on raw edge applique? You know, it is kind of one of my favorites. You know, I've been doing, I have a whole different series of quilt designs that I created many years ago, and they were all raw edge applique. And it was a very fast way to get a beautiful quilt block and ultimately a quilt by having the raw edge applique, because all the trimming was done later. So, let's see. Okay, we got 3 yeses. That's good. Kirsten likes it. It took a little bit to grow on you. I understand. Yeah, because, you know, we're traditionalists, many of us embroiderers, and we have expectations of applique, right? Or embroidery in general. So, but I have found, you know, well, one thing that really taught me was I was visiting the Houston Quilt Show, Quilt Fest, where you have that fabulous competition, right? Where the quilt show, those quilts that hang in that show, it's like hallowed ground, right? And walking up and down every aisle, I was so impressed. And of course, there are categories, right? So there's handwork categories and so forth. But I will tell you, some of the art quilts that really stopped me in my tracks, that, I mean, literally I would stare at for maybe 15, 20 minutes and note all of the different details. Many of them, upon closer inspection, were raw edge applique. And many of those quilts had ribbons on them. So I thought to myself, well, hey, if it's accepted here in these hollowed halls of Houston Quilt Fest, I think this is something we can explore a little further. And so I love it today. Let's see, Edward, you, which is really Donna Lee, you like my earrings. Thank you. Yeah, these are those small little leaf stems that are in our Just Earrings collection that was out this, out this work. Let's see. So Judy Quilt, you say, I'm another non-fan of raw edge applique embroidery. However, these designs work for that technique. That's a good comment, Judy Quilt, because not every applique design will work for raw edge. You know, it really has to, you know, when it's intended to be raw edge and it's designed to highlight that feature or accent that feature, then it works. So you can't always just take any traditional applique design and convert it into a raw edge. I mean, you can, but you might not be happy with the result. Okay, so what's next? So, well, what if we really do like the fray look? So let's take a look at that sample first. So here is, I used a beautiful linen fabric on this applique, and then I'm fraying it with a brush. I am literally just brushing those edges and working that linen fabric so that I get that desired frayed edge. It adds another dimension to the embroidery. And when I wash this embroidery design, it will soften and fray even softer. And now it won't come apart from the base fabric because those tack downs are bean stitches. They're really nice and tight, tiny little stitches, and, you know, a triple stitch, that's what a bean stitch is. And I can trim some of these longer thread tails, but this is a look that's very popular in ready wear. And you most certainly can do that with this collection. So don't be afraid to do it. If you're going to try the frayed look, really take a look at the embroidery design and make sure that when you place your square of linen, right, down on top of the placement guide and then stitch your tack down, then take a moment to trim generously outside that area so that the next stitches don't stitch on a part that you would like to remove. Like for instance, in this design, the small flower stitches first. And so I placed my square of fabric for flower 1 and then stitched my tack down. And then the next design, the next color in the design is the placement guide for this flower, which stitched on part of my first square. So, you have to pay attention. It would be best to trim away all of first flower before you add second. So that's what color sequence charts are all about. That's what it's going to show you. And, pay attention to that. What else do we have here? Okay, so this and I think all of Reen's samples are all pre-cut applique. So we save the applique as a FCM or SVG and cut it out on a cutter. And then, of course, then when you stitch the placement guide, this will fit right in there. And so that was my one sample. But I know many of you like to trim in the hoop. So I have a sample of that kind of in progress. And that's right here. So let me remove this. I've already stitched, I didn't do anything. I'm just following the color sequence. Color 1 is this beautiful pink branch. And then it's followed by the green stem and then the black. Next color is placement guide for this flower, followed by the tack down. And now I have the placement guide for this flower. And I think I have a printout of this design that I could show you. I wonder if that's handy right here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so here's the finished. Ignore my comments down there. Maybe I could get them off camera. Let's see. So this is my this is what I'm going for, right? This is what it's going to look like when I'm done, and I'm getting very close. So let's put this back on the machine, and let's just discuss how I've prepared my fabric. So I have applied Fuse Me to the wrong side, and I'm just going to separate the protective paper from the wrong side and pull it away. Now you can see it has a nice little sheen on it, right? So that's where my glue is. And I'm going to cover my placement guide with that applique fabric and then place it over on the machine. So let's go do that. And the first color that's going to stitch will be the placement guide. And I'm going to stitch that in the orange. And we'll lower the presser foot and we'll stitch that. And then we'll take it out of the hoop. I mean, not out of the hoop, but I'll take it off the machine and come back to the overhead cam and we'll trim it right under the camera. Okay, so let's see. So Gayla wants to know, do you size up your FCM file when cutting out? Well, Reen made sure that the embroidery designs are already sized up for digital cutting. So you don't have to do that. She took the time to test the designs and change some of the settings so that we wouldn't have that problem, which would really be a problem, right? Okay, so let me pull this off. And then we'll trim. Love how nice and tight those hoops fit on the machine. Sometimes. I mean, I always love that they're nice and tight, but sometimes you worry that you're going to dislodge it. But if they're loose, boy, that is such a nightmare. So, okay, so I'm just holding my scissors and right against that running stitch outline, and I am lifting my applique fabric as I travel around the flower. And, now remember, I have Fuse Me on here. So before I go back to the machine, I'm going to put a wool press pad underneath my hoop and we will fuse it in place. Now you have to remember that if you were to fuse right now, this whole square would fuse to your base fabric. And that is not a look that you're going for, I'm sure. So I often, rotate the hoop as I do this. I find that, and I apologize as if my hand is obscuring your view, but, it's kind of an awkward maneuver to do, right? Even in your own sewing room, let alone on camera. And, but I just want you to see, you get nice and tight, but, it's roll edge applique. So it's very forgiving. It doesn't have to be trimmed as close or as tight as you would if this was going to be traditional applique that had a satin cover. Because, the worst thing that happens to us with a satin edge is that the edge of the applique is visible outside of the satin. But, with roll edge applique, it's kind of what we're going for, right? We don't really care that there is some excess fabric. Okay, so before I apply the iron, we have to kind of blow all these little bits of fabric out of the way. Otherwise, they will fuse in place either to my iron or to the base fabric. So we'll get that out of the way, and I'll bring over my iron and the wool pad. Place that on there. And these little irons, aren't these fantastic? Because then you can just iron right in the hoop. Even in a 4x4 hoop, these little irons work. I love that. So now I don't have to worry about this becoming dislodged. It's all on there nice and permanently fused. And we'll just take this back to the machine. Oh, I wasn't under my camera. I'm sorry. I apologize. Anyway, well, you know how that goes, right? So I had this all happening. Sorry about that. So the Joyce Leary, you asked, does the Fuse Me prevent fraying? It sure does. It absolutely does. It has two functions. One is to permanently attach to the machine. Permanently attach to the base fabric, and then the other is to prevent fraying, because it'll close those raw edges and not allow the fabric to fray. So that's exactly how you control that. I'll just thread that up, and we'll stitch the rest of that design. Off we go. It's going to do a little flower center, and then it's going to do some more accents on the rest of the petals. Yeah, Deborah, sorry that I didn't move that under the camera. I should have been trying to read the comments while I was trimming in the hoop. But anyway, welcome, Joanne Banco. Nice to have you here. You got carried away with your work. Yeah, me too. So Wenda, where do you get Fuse Me? Is a product that we sell here at Dime, and Fuse Me is a permanent fusible web, and we just absolutely love that. It has a very light hand. It applies to the applique fabric very quickly with just a light pass of the iron. And there's a link down below where you can grab the Fuse Me. Okay, so let's see. You love the roll edge flowers in my book about quilting by machine. The layers are done and trimmed and then fused. Well, Carolyn Morrow, yeah, that's a different technique than what we are discussing here today with Reen's collection. Those designs that you're talking about are digitized so that you can do all the quilting and the applique, and nothing stitches on top of the applique's outer edges after it's applied, so you can trim when you take it out of the hoop. And let's see, Marianne Dublaglet. This is a book that she's talking about. My machine, Quilt with Your Embroidery Machine in 8 Easy Lessons features that technique, Marianne. And I previously wrote a book for another publisher, Krause Publications, who's not in business anymore. And I think that book is out of print, but that was modern. Really, I don't remember the name. I'm sorry, but it had a New York beauty quilt on the cover. So anyway, what size are these designs, Carolyn? They are all going to fit in a 5x7 hoop. All of the designs fit in a 5x7 hoop. So we should probably, let's go back over to PowerPoint, and you can show I want to show you. So in the collection, you have a PDF file that has a template of each of the embroidery designs, and the color sequence calls out not only the color, but also when it's a placement guide, when you will cover the placement guide with your applique fabric and stitch the tack down. So you can follow along with all of those. Yeah. Joanne Banco, it is adorable. And I think that we're going to have an image of all of the embroidery designs in just a minute. So bear with us while we find that. Let's see. There you go. Isn't that nice? Those are all the designs. Now, what we're showing you there is the actual embroidery designs, and they have applique fabric in them. So all of those solid colors that you see are applique fabrics. And so these are really sketched designs, right? That's the whole idea. So, and Marianne de Bagla, I don't believe the book is still available. Sorry. Machine embroidered quilt, and somebody help me with that, Sam. I've written 14 books. It's a little hard to keep track of them, and a lot of them I was a lot younger then. So let's see. Quilt with your embroidery machine in 8 easy lessons. That is still available. It's on our website, and that technique is explained in there. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So, hey, let's bring that beautiful sample back over to the overhead cam so you can take a look and see how nice that came out. And it's absolutely achieving the look that we all just talked about, how we love how that hand sketched is. Let me get my board here. A black outline, the hand sketched black outline, doesn't sit right on the edge of the flowers. The flowers are held down by the tack down, and I've stitched that in pink thread. It matches fairly closely to the applique fabric, and orange on this orange. And then offset, just a little offset, sketchy, is that black outline. Doesn't it look lovely? It's so whimsical and so lightweight. So let's take this out of the hoop so you can get an idea of just how lightweight these embroidery designs are. Now, of course, I do have a layer of no-show mesh on the wrong side, but look, a good way to tell how lightweight an embroidery design is to roll the fabric once it's embroidered. And so if you're able to roll it up and keep a cylinder shape, then that tells you just how soft that embroidery is. If they were hard fill stitches or heavy applique with satin edges, it would not roll and keep a cylinder shape like it does in this fashion. So you can be confident that it's going to be very comfortable to wear on a garment. Very comfortable. Yeah. Okay. All right. That was fun, huh? Yeah, Joanne Banco, you like the lightweight effect? I do too. It was really important to Reen and really hear us at Dime too, that we were able to mimic that hand-sketched floral so that it really was lightweight and really comfortable to wear. And as you saw in all the samples that we showed you, you have so many options on what to do with it. Clothing, accessories like her cork crossbody bag. She had a zipper bag. She had 2 pillows. We did towels. She had quilt blocks. I mean, it's very, very versatile. Let's see. So if these towels were on a tea towel, would you use tearaway? If they were on a tea towel, I would use our wash away tearaway stabilizer, because that is a tearaway. But let's go back to the overhead cam so I can illustrate what I mean. And I'll do it from the right side. A tearaway fabric would be, oh, we froze there a second. There we go. Are we still freezing? There we go. A tearaway would be very difficult to remove from all these tiny areas, right? Yes, you could tear it out. It would take forever. And let's not forget that the act of tearing is a kind of a violent act, right? You're ripping a stabilizer, separating it from the beautiful threads that you just took all that time to apply to that fabric. So when you have run stitches and delicate little areas like this that are still open, a tearaway is probably not what you really want, but a cutaway would be too heavy, too dense, right? So our wash away, tear away means that you can gently tear it away and it will remove from all these outer areas. And then when you launder the towel, it will just dissolve in these little tiny areas. Kind of like how a tissue goes through the laundry. You know, if you have one in your pocket or so forth and you pull it out of the dryer, it's not totally gone, but it sure has softened, right? So that's what wash away, tear away would do. And that's what I would use on a towel. Yeah. Yeah, it's Spencer is an awesome collection. There's such a variety, and you know they all stitch pretty quick. I mean, it's applique, so there's going to be some steps to it, as I just showed you. But you know, because it's sketching, there's no real heavy fills. It does stitch out rather quickly. I think the longest design that I stitched, and I did about 4 or 5, was 19 minutes. So that's not bad. That's not bad. Oh, Natalie, you're late to the game. Well, I was just showing everybody Reen Wilcoxon from Embroidery Garden, her hand-sketched florals collection. She has a new dime collection with us, and it's on. This is the intro. This first time you're seeing it, first time available, and it is available as an instant download and a special price of $39.99. In addition to that, what's really cool about that instant download is next week on this show on Between Friends, Reen is going to be my guest. So if you buy it today and stitch it out over the next week, you can tell us, you know, about your experience. We can chat about it because Reen will be in the house next week. We're excited. She had a conflict today, so she wasn't able to be here, but it'll be super fun to do that together next week. Cynthia, so many ideas, makes my head spin. Yeah, I know. Me too. So many ideas. Where do we start first, right? Where do we start first? I find making a list is really helpful. You know, make a list. And that just kind of gives you some direction. Just gives you a little direction. It's really hard. Let's see. What's the difference between fusible backing and Fuse Me? Well, fusible backing is a stabilizer. And we have no-show, we have fusible no-show mesh, we have some other fusible products. And so the idea is that you fuse those stabilizers onto the back of the fabric that you are going to be embroidering on. Fuse Me is a fusible bonding adhesive that has a coated paper side, so that you lay this Fuse Me, a piece of it, on the fabric that you want to fuse to another piece of fabric. So you would Fuse Me to your applique fabric, remove the paper, protective paper, that release paper, and then place that with the wrong side of the applique, which has the adhesive on it now, you place that over your base fabric, your outline, your placement guide on your base fabric, and that you'll stitch your outline, trim away the excess, and then it'll be permanently fused in place. If you're using a digital cutter and Fuse Me, you can also apply the Fuse Me to the wrong side of the applique fabric before you cut it on your digital cutter. When I do that, I place the applique fabric that has the Fuse Me applied right side down on my fabric mat. And I do remove the protective paper and let it cut in that fashion. I will mirror image the applique on my digital cutter so that, you know, because I'm cutting it wrong side down. No, wrong side up. Let's see, is the wash away, tear away sold on your website? Yeah, Retha, I believe it is, and it's just called Wash Away, Tear Away. Mm-hmm. Yes. Can you please put the link for Fuse Me? So yes, just bear with us a minute, Wenda, sorry, and one of my team members will get Fuse Me up there on the website. Yeah, the great techniques, right? Great techniques, Belinda. I know I love what Reen came up with. These are really fun designs, kind of a new look. It's a look that you're seeing in a lot of ready wear. So now you can mimic that too at home. And that's pretty cool. So next week, I told you that Reen Wilcoxon will be in the house. That will also be our On the House project. But this week, we do have a On the House project that we found that Ginny Barr speaking of Reen Wilcoxon, she was inspired by Reen because I don't know if many of you remember, but a couple weeks ago, Reen made our On the House free design of the ice cream cones into a keychain, into a key fob chain. And so she just outlined it in software and to create that vinyl fob. And there you go. And Ginny Barr repeated that same technique. Very nice. But look what she did also going on a trip. She used our Trippin' free design that we shared a couple weeks ago, the last week in June. And this is a luggage tag. I love the variety that you use there. I mean, you have, something, I'm assuming these are for people on your guest list. Maybe, somebody who has a green bag, somebody who has a blue bag, somebody else who has a black and gray bag, like 99% of the other bags on the carousel, right? But how fun. Really beautiful fabrics that you chose. Oh, I love it. You did a really nice job, Ginny. So, yeah, aren't they great? Really, really nice, right, Joanne? I know we love them. Yeah. And so, as you remember, On the House embroidery designs are available all year long. They're still on our website. You'll find the link down below in just a moment. There it is. And so you can go there and you can grab any of the designs. We're on week, might be like 29 or getting close to that. And you can still get all of those designs. Once a month, I make a project either featuring some of those designs or a new design, and that's on the last Thursday of the month. And just in case you're wondering, if you'd like to sew along with someone with that project, you can do that on my friend Sue Brown's channel on YouTube. Now, she has OML Embroidery, and on the Saturday following the review or the reveal of the On the House project, she does a sew along. So check out OML Embroidery for the sew along. And when you make your project, please post it on social media and tag it with On the House Design or Dime Sew Along, and we'll find it because we search social media looking for what you're stitching. And if you tag it with that, then we will for sure, share it with you. Okay, so let's see what this week's free design is. This is, if you remember, earlier this year, we had the winter tree and we had the spring tree. Well, now we have the summer tree. And this one features a swing hanging from the lowest branch. It also has some very pretty orange butterflies in the foliage. So I think you'll enjoy this one. And next week, we're going to feature the On the House project. And I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with these trees. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope to see you here next week at 1 o'clock. We'll have Reen Wilcoxon in the house, and we will also reveal another new product. It's not Reen's, but it's a new quilting collection that we're super excited about. And it's just in time for some of your summer projects that you've been working on maybe, and you're wondering how to finish that quilt. We have it for you. So we'll see you next week. Judy Quilt, yes, you love that Dime and OML Embroidery University work together to help us solve. Well, OML Embroidery does do an awful lot of great work, and I'd like to give them a shout out. I haven't done enough of that lately, and we're going to have Sue back, hopefully in August. I have to reach out to her and get some dates set, so definitely. Let's see. Miss K's Scraps, would you recommend wash away, tear away for words on a quilt? Yeah, maybe. That would not be that's a loaded question, right? Are these, what kind of lettering? Is it satin? Is it micro? Is it big fill stitches? Is it applique? But Wash away, tear away is very nice stabilizer to use when it's going to be in a quilt, because as you launder the quilt, it kind of dissolves. So, okay. Great show today. Thanks for joining me. I really had a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you here next week.